Hello, everyone. Good day to you. So happy to have you joining us here at the Pathway to Prosperity Conference today. So my name is Colleen Bell. I am the coordinator for the Welcoming Communities at the Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia, also known as ISANS. So today I will be in two roles. I will be the chair of the session, but I will also be one of the participants. And with me today, accompanying me, are two of my brilliant colleagues. I have Jordan Remedios, who is the facilitator for the Intercultural Workplace Program at ISANS, and also Tessa Dixon, who is the Inclusivity Coordinator at ISANS. And together we form the Intercultural Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team, which is also a part of a larger team entitled the Innovation and Strategic Partnership Team at ISANS. So just a little bit about ISANS. ISANS is one of the settlement agencies in the Atlantic Canada, serving 10,000 plus clients annually in over 104 communities across Nova Scotia. Today, we are pleased to invite you to join us on our title, Supercharging Organizational Innovation Through Integrated EDI Pathways. Before we go any further, we want to have an land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are presenting from the unceded traditional Mi'kmaq territory, and we are grateful for the peace and the friendship treaties. And we honor and respect all of the Indigenous people of this land. We are actively working towards reconciliation, recognizing the harm caused through colonialism, and we are working towards building relationships with Indigenous people. On our agenda, we will be exploring what EDI is, what equity, diversity, and inclusion is. We will be sharing with you our integrated approach as a team and continuing to share about our pathways. So we represent 3 different pathways at ISANS, and that is the employer, the community, and the partnership and research pathways. And we will also be participating in a case study, doing it in the form of an activity. Okay, so I will turn over to my colleague, Jordan, and Jordan will be sharing with you a bit more about our integrated approach to equity, diversity, and inclusion.
So thank you so much, Colleen, and thank you to all those who answered the polls. It was very nice to hear what you all think about this, and I think we're going to be building upon those ideas today. So I'm just going to speak a little bit about our integrated approach to EDI and how we see EDI now, but also in the future. So in the past, each of our EDI programs were housed on separate teams. While we were doing this work, essentially we were doing it in silos without the full understanding of what each one's program entailed. So after doing this for a while, there was recognition that we could have more impact as a collaborative team. So with ISAN's vision, expanding the Innovations and Strategic Partnership team was created, and the IEDI, so the Intercultural Intercultural Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team, was placed as a part of the greater team on the Innovation and Strategic Partnerships. So our organization is committed to promoting EDI in 3 main areas: employment, communities, and partnerships. We strongly believe that this 3-pronged approach is essential for achieving meaningful and sustainable progress within the field of EDI. We understand that true EDI requires a holistic view of people, recognizing that each individual is complex and multifaceted with their own unique experiences, perspectives, and needs. Therefore, as we approach our work, we want to include this understanding and fully understand that EDI is not simply a matter of checking boxes or fulfilling quotas, but rather a transformative process that requires a deep commitment to social justice and equity.
Thank you, Jordan. And it is so important what Jordan was sharing about, and how when we consider that where we came from as a past, operating, everyone doing their own thing, and then moving towards the future, seeing that, as was mentioned in the chat already, that having that integrated approach would be so much more meaningful. This is the pathway that we are continuing, and we are building it, and we are working towards this for the future, where we can see even more ingrained, not just within our organization, but within the other organizations that we are connecting with. And so now Jordan will start off by sharing with you how our employer pathway works to benefit so many organizations that we are working with in Nova Scotia.
Yes, thank you, Colleen. So our employer pathway is facilitated through the Intercultural Workplace Program, a team that I'm a proud member of. So our mission is to support Nova Scotian employers in fostering welcoming work environments that respects and celebrates diversity of all employers and employees, and helps them to thrive. We offer many different forms of assistance, such as helping employers prioritize the well-being of their employees and helping them cultivate a positive workplace culture that values everyone's contributions. We assist employers in overcoming any barriers or difficulties related to diversity in recruitment, retention, and career advancement. We help enhance their intercultural communication and relationship building skills so that they can foster collaboration and understanding. We provide support and resources for teams to work effectively and harmoniously across diverse backgrounds and perspectives. We raise awareness and education on diversity and inclusion issues through addressing and discussing with them any biases or prejudices that may arrive in the workplace. And finally, we help develop effective conflict resolution skills that can help in an intercultural environment, and also that respects different viewpoints and promotes dialogue. In short, we aim to create and sustain a positive and inclusive workplace culture that values diversity and enables all employees to succeed. So this is what we do, and how we do this is through our program pathway. So our goal from our pathway is to promote EDI and develop intercultural competence in every workplace that we work with. We recognize that this is an ongoing journey and requires consistent effort and commitment from everyone in an organization. So I'll just kind of go through our pathway and tell you a little bit more about it. So the first step is introductions. So at this stage, we get to know employers. We have them learn about our program, the reasons for and the benefits from working with us, and also have them reflect on their own personal cultural backgrounds, values, biases, and stereotypes. This stage is crucial because it sets a foundation for all the further work that we do and for all the work in developing intercultural competence and understanding the importance of EDI in the workplace. Following that, our second step is the foundational workshops. So this is when employers participate in our intercultural training programs, workshops, and presentations to increase their understanding of different cultures. These workshops provide a safe space for employers and employees to learn and explore different cultures without fear of judgment. Through our sessions, employers learn how to identify and address biases, stereotypes, and navigate cultural differences. The third step is building relationships. So this is when employers are able to bring these discussions back to the workplace with or without our guidance. Here they will have opportunities to learn about different cultures both within and outside the workplace, and are also connected to the local community groups to better connect with the community. Building relationships is important because it helps employers to understand different perspectives and again, create more inclusive workplaces, which is always our goal. Following this, our fourth step is assessment and action plans. So we run an intercultural assessment, which focuses on a few areas such as leadership, strategy, planning, resource allocation, recruitment and retention, accountability, and finally, typical behaviors and beliefs. We like to run this in 2 sessions. So the first session identifies where an organization stands on the intercultural competency scale, and the second session presents the results and strengths, and also identifies priorities and actions and timelines for each action. We also do follow-up sessions, which are available to check progress, and also cultural shift workshops, which are also available as additional options. So finally, the fifth step is welcoming workplace. So at this point, the employer is a champion of EDI within their industry and sector. While the steps before this are iterative, this is always the goal. We're always trying to help guide them to become a welcoming workplace. And once they are here, they're able to lead the conversations by themselves. And when they're here, they encourage open discussions about EDI topics in the workplace, support inclusive policies and practices, challenge discriminations and biases, and take responsibility for their own improvement. Inclusion, we recognize that this is a multi-step process and it takes a lot of work, but we are here to help employers, and by following these steps with us, they can work to become a welcoming workplace. One final thing I'd like to talk about is how this relates to the Atlantic Immigration Program and the challenges and opportunities that have derived from this. So if you are not familiar, the Atlantic Immigration Program is a Canadian government initiative that helps employers in the area of Atlantic Canada hire foreign workers to address their labor needs. They're able to hire workers from abroad and help them settle and integrate into the new communities. Most of the immigrants who come to this program are from Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. However, they are also less likely to stay in Atlantic Canada than immigrants from Europe and the United States. So this means that employers need to learn how to effectively work with employees from different cultural backgrounds and really develop their intercultural competence. After the Atlantic Immigration Program moved from being a pilot to a permanent program in January 2022, employers have been required to take a mandatory intercultural competency training. And these trainings are provided by settlement service organizations like ISANS. So this training helps employers build positive relationships with their immigrant employees and also helps them understand the needs and challenges that they will face settling here. It also recognizes that the people that they will hire will likely be coming with their family and settling in Atlantic Canada. So they need, not only the employees need help, but also their families need help settling. So employers who complete the training not only learn how to create inclusive workplaces for their immigrant employees, they also learn how to value their new staff as a whole and as members of the community. So thank you very much. I will now hand it over to Colleen Bell to discuss the community pathway.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And I do want to invite you that while we are presenting, you are quite free to use the Q&A option. So right in there, you can enter any questions that you would like us to answer towards the ending of the session. We will set aside a few minutes that we can address those questions. So feel free to enter them in that Q&A option. And thank you, Jordan, again. And so I'm happy to share about the community pathway. So the entire program is called the Welcoming Communities. I absolutely love that because it really reflects what it is that our team does. And so it also aligns with what ISANS's goal is and vision really is, and that is around working to create more inclusive, diverse, and welcoming spaces in Nova Scotia, and where really and truly equitable opportunities exist for everyone. And so whilst the intercultural workplace side, the employer focus, is geared around assisting that employer to either have a more diverse staff, hire a more diverse staff, and around retention, and also around relationships with employees, the community pathway is more focused on helping those same persons to be respectful of each other, to build relationship with each other. And not only the internal focus, but the external focus is what we work towards, ensuring that there is that human side that is introduced into their work. And so we spend a lot of time focusing on responsibility, and accountability. So responsibility as an individual, as a human being, as a matter of fact, a responsibility to create welcoming and safer and inclusive spaces where people can feel that sense of belonging and not be afraid to be their authentic self. And so this is done through a lot of the intercultural and the EDI training that we provide. We provide a wide suite of options for people to engage in. And along that responsibility of being just very basic, a good human being, a kind human being, and a thoughtful human being is also that accountability around how should we treat others? How would we want ourselves to be treated? And so whilst we are dealing with people at all levels of different organizations, whether it be at senior management, or whether it be at just as someone in a community organization, our aim remains the same: to touch people at their heart, to work on those common things around who we are as individuals. And then we go deeper into training about how then that can impact spaces like the workplace, but also the community as a large. So with the training that we provide, we have the Building Intercultural Competence Workshop, which would be like a full day workshop where we come with that immigrant lens to help people understand who are the immigrants that are coming to our province. So we're hearing, yes, many immigrants are coming, and we are seeing subsequent governments have lots of programs to welcome them. And so we spend time to help people to understand who are the individuals that are coming, where are they coming from, what are the ways, what are the streams and the ways that they're actually coming, and what are they coming to do? And we help them then to understand many of the challenges that those immigrants, especially newcomer immigrants, are experiencing. We go through that day looking at different concepts that are further developed or explored in subsequent workshops. But the aim really is to leave people after that day being fully aware of what are some of the challenges and what are some of the things that we can do. And they also leave with a lot of tools and strategies about how they themselves can be creating more welcoming spaces, not only for immigrants, but for everyone that we engage with. We have other programs like the Welcome Ambassador program, again, stretched out over a month now, where we have for 3 hours every week, 20 hours altogether is dedicated towards going a little bit deeper on some of the concepts that we touch in the Building Intercultural Competence Workshop, and really helping people to take action about what we can do to help people to feel as though they truly belong when they're coming into organizations, whether as employees or whether as just participants. And then there are a number of other EDI workshops that we have created. For example, EDI 101, unconscious and implicit bias, microaggressions, the newcomer experience, and power and privilege, among many others. But the main thing and the main approach that we have is that we are always listening to what our audiences are seeing and building and creating the workshops based upon their needs, tailoring it to them specifically. And then where community engagement is concerned, we partner with a number of different government agencies as well as community agencies or organizations rather, work with them on particular assignments. And we are seeing in Nova Scotia, there are many organizations who are taking that step out and saying, not only do we want to form an anti-racist statement or an anti-oppressive statement, not only are we just putting it out there in statement form, but we want to take willful action. And so we participate on working groups and steering committees. We have conversations, we have consultations, and we assist people with these meaningful steps. I just want to give you 2 examples. And so the first one is from government, working alongside government, where we joined and partnered with ARASA, the Atlantic Region Association of Immigrant Serving Agencies, and their work to provide training for IRCC Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, with the program that Jordan referred to, the Atlantic Immigration Program. And so what we had recognized was that people were coming, like Jordan mentioned, they were coming, being hired by organizations, but many sometimes did not remain. They moved on to other provinces. So this effort was to ensure that employers were ready to receive immigrants from all over the world, understanding the differences in terms of cultures and how we can be interculturally competent within the workplace. And so that program was designed to build and to create a training tool for employers who were a part of the Atlantic Immigration Program, so that they will be well equipped, and their senior leadership and staff as well. And so ISONS, we sat on that working group to help with that creation of that product. And that's the same product that is now being delivered through ISONS and other organizations to help empower employers who are bringing skilled people to work and to fill the skills gaps in Canada. Another meaningful engagement that the EDI team was a part of was working alongside Recreation Nova Scotia. And so we advised on the steering committee towards creating the anti-racist charter in recreation. And now I am so happy to say that ISONS was one of the first organizations to sign on to that charter back in November last year. And this is a tool that will help many generations of people to feel welcome and appreciated and valued for the skills that they bring in the recreation field. And then capacity building activities. And so we as a team also engage in the larger community now, being involved in meaningful exercises and opportunities that could help newcomers feel welcome in their own community, and that can also equip service providers to be providing efficient and effective services to those newcomers. And so one such example is the Supernova, which is a large event that is held, and it's a process, it's a collaborative approach with other organizations, and we provide like a large potluck where newcomers can come, and at that level of food that can always help us to throw off barriers, just by sharing food and being a part of that potluck, to really get to know people in the community, and service providers to be able to have a presence and show that, yes, we are here to be supportive of you. And so we engage in other events as well, barbecues and a number of other events. And so we are happy about that. And now we also want to share who we serve. So we basically serve so many different organizations and groups throughout Nova Scotia. So we serve community-based organizations, businesses, universities and other institutes, government agencies, community service providers, volunteers, any group basically, or any individual that is within Nova Scotia. We do help them to have that both internal focus of who their staff is, who they are meeting on a daily basis, as well as who is in the community, who they are serving, and being reflective of the community that they're serving, understanding their needs and being welcoming and helping them to feel that sense of belonging, and that, yes, we appreciate you working for us, and we also appreciate you engaging in our service and being our client. And again, this work is from the heart. And so we do have a client-focused approach, an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, trauma-informed approach to this work. And we also help people to learn and understand new perspectives, new cultural experiences that maybe they might not have been familiar with. And we also encourage that process of relearning. And so we encourage people to always be reflecting throughout these sessions, looking at where they are, how are they in this space, who are they in this space, what privilege they might have or might not have. And then again, everything is geared towards action. Now that we've understood another person's perspective, what can we do now to help other people feel as though they truly are included and they truly are a part of our communities, our workplaces, and our organizations? And so one of the other things that we do as we move to the next slide is that we are constantly engaging with our audience. We are allowing opportunities to hear first voice experiences, especially from equity-seeking groups. People who for many years have felt like, you know what, I have not had a voice. I've not been able to speak. In these workshops, we allow people's voices to be included. And this workshop here that I designed last year is called the Celebrating Black Heritage, Uniting People of African Descent. This was a good opportunity for ISONS as an organization to hear the concerns of our clients, but also to hear the concerns of the other members of the community. And so much time was spent as early as 2020, just having conversations with people, meeting with elders in the community, having different conversations, feedback from other workshops, engaging with different people through ISONS who were hearing concerns from our clients. And one example was with those persons who would have come from the Black communities all over the world, the African diaspora. With those clients that we saw, we heard from their experiences within certain communities that it was not always as easy as they thought it was to fit right into communities. So we have much respect for the African Nova Scotian community that have been here from generations. Over 400 years ago, people from the continent of Africa were brought here. They were brought over the seas. Many of you probably heard the stories through African Heritage Month. It was not a good experience for them, but out of the hardship that they experienced from 400 years ago, that resilience stood strong. That sense of community and that sense of, creativity help them to prevail. And so we have a situation where in some communities, there are over 52 communities that were created by the African Nova Scotians. And so thankful that we can all participate in it. But what we recognized was that there was a gap in terms of newcomers understanding that those difficult experiences that the African Nova Scotian community had experienced and still continue to experience. But we also recognize that the African Nova Scotians communities did not necessarily understand much of the troubles and the difficulties that other Africans from throughout the world were experiencing. And so this workshop was designed to help bring unity between all people of African descent, and also to create a space for celebration of who we are, and a space also for that continuous dialogue where we could build relationship. And so this workshop, just like our others, is based upon continuously evolving based upon the feedback that we are receiving in the workshop and outside. And now, because of the responses that we are hearing and wanting to cater to those needs, we have now developed a version of this for accomplices and allies who want to join in, and they too want to celebrate the Black experiences and all of our legacies here in Canada. And now a new version is also being designed for the youth. And I have been receiving, numerous requests to offer this workshop in schools and to younger generations. And I'm happy to say that that is what we are working on now. So thank you. And I do want to invite Tessa to share about our partnerships and our research pathway.
Thanks very much, Colleen. Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here. My name is Tessa Dixon, and I am one of the coordinators for the project Supporting Inclusivity, Increasing Capacity of Partner Community Organizations to Serve Immigrants. This is a project funded by the IRCC Anti-Racism Strategy Fund, which has as one of its central focuses to increase social participation among immigrants. This project aims to increase the anti-racism and equity, diversity, and inclusion knowledge and capacity of 4 sectors: the disability sector, the family support services sector, the volunteer sector, and the recreation sector in Nova Scotia. These sectors are represented by 4 partnering community organizations in the project. We are focusing on community organizations because we know that they provide a wide range of services and important programs that can impact the integration experience of immigrants. By increasing these organizations' knowledge of immigrants and immigrant experiences, as well as their EDI and anti-racism knowledge and capacity, we hope to increase the accessibility of community services and the experiences that immigrants have while receiving those services. Our project hopes to achieve some of the following: an increase in the anti-racism and EDI knowledge and capacity among community organizations serving immigrants in Nova Scotia, an increase of immigrants' awareness and access to community services, and an increase in their sense of belonging, inclusion, and representation within community services. We also want to cultivate and support relationships and sustainable partnerships between organizations so that we can build a better network of support around immigrant clients. And we also want to increase organizational knowledge about some of the ways in which they might unknowingly have barriers that prevent access to services. This project uses a community-based research approach, which is an approach to research that involves an equitable and active participation of stakeholders so that the people most impacted by the research are a part of the whole research process. This is an approach to research that emphasizes knowledge co-creation, and it's also action-oriented. It aims at achieving positive social change. In the context of this project, a steering committee, which is comprised of our 4 partnering organizations, as well as a number of other organizations who represent our 4 sectors, as well as the settlement sector, guide the entire project from start to finish. They share organizational and sector knowledge and expertise, providing ongoing guidance and resources to ensure that our work is relevant, applicable, and realistic. They are pivotal to this whole research project. Their active involvement in every component of this project reflects the community-based participation research approach, which through knowledge co-creation shares power with and engages community partners while directly benefiting that community by translating our research findings into interventions, tools, or policy change that can aim to achieve positive social change. Lastly, this project is also accompanied by a concurrent evaluation by our evaluation partners from the Centre for Community-Based Research in Ontario. So rather than completing an evaluation at the end of the project when everything is wrapped up, they're working alongside us as partners to provide us with guidance on community-based research and also to conduct their evaluation with us on an ongoing basis. So they participate in every steering committee meeting and we regularly meet with them and work with them. There are 3 phases to this project. At present, the project is still in phase 1, and we are at the last stage of our first stage, which is the research and development phase. This phase focuses primarily on research and development. During this phase, the steering committee is working collaboratively to develop educational and capacity building tools that can support anti-racism and EDI knowledge and capacity development in our 4 partnering organizations. So among other things, this involves identification of strengths and challenges in our partnering organizations, assessing anti-racism and EDI knowledge gaps, conducting needs assessments, environmental scans, and doing some gap analysis work and research on EDI in these 4 sectors. In phase 2, this is our piloting and testing phase. So during this stage, we will take the tools that we design in phase 1, and we're actually going to bring them back to our partnering organizations, and we're going to incubate and test the tools in these organizations. During this phase, we'll have multiple feedback processes, we'll do some retooling and retesting. And this is the point in which we're actually figuring out, is our tools, are they accessible? Are they realistic? Are they actually helpful? In phase 3, this is our knowledge mobilization phase. This phase will focus on extrapolating some best practices and findings from the piloting experience and assessing whether or not they have applicability to the broader sector. It will also involve translating our research findings into accessible formats so that we can share information with the sectors our communities, and other stakeholders. So as I just mentioned, we're working to develop community organizations' anti-racism and EDI capacity, but this project also has an additional function. It's an opportunity for the research and partnership pathway to support the development and growth of ISAN's service delivery capacity in some of the following ways. By providing research and data about the status of EDI in community organizations, to learn more about what organizations need in order to increase their EDI capacity, to determine what organizations struggle with, and how we as the EDI team can meet some of those needs. By assessing and evaluating the effectiveness, adaptability, and relevance of existing EDI programming and training. So how well are the current programs working to meet these needs that these organizations have? Also, by developing, testing, and evaluating new EDI tools for our team to potentially include in its suite of EDI programming. Also, to develop sustainable and mutually beneficial partnerships among immigrant-serving organizations in Nova Scotia through the participatory research process. And lastly, by testing the efficacy, feasibility, and utility of using this community-based research approach in our EDI work. Thank you. So now we're going to get started on a case study activity. We're going to showcase how we would utilize our integrated approach that we've just presented to you to support an organization along their EDI journey. As a team, we receive a wide variety of requests from businesses, industries, sectors, organizations, and groups looking for support on a variety of issues, such as hiring and retention of staff, or education about immigrants. It could also be about their programs and services or anything beyond or between that. This case study will demonstrate the type of organization we might work with, their requests to us, and how we use our integrated approach to respond to their needs, wants, concerns, and capacities. Just a note, this is a hypothetical case study. This is not real information from any of our clients or partners. This is just something, an example that we wanted to showcase what we do.
So thank you, Tessa. And so just to start it off, we'll present a little bit of information about the teachers union, again, who are just representing an amalgamation of some of the organizations that we work with. So for this example, we're working with a teachers union, and they are well respected in the local community, and they're interested in improving their EDI capabilities. They are already well versed in labor issues, employment rights, and the understanding of power and privilege, and also have a strong commitment to promoting fairness and equity for its members. However, in recent years, their employee demographics have started to change, and they have an increasing number of members from the LGBTQ+ community, more women, and more people of immigrant backgrounds. They then realize that they need to expand their knowledge and understanding of these communities so that they can better serve their members. So to address this needs, they contacted ISANS and they wanted to learn what supports we could offer. So we launched our Integrated Pathway Initiative. And these are some of the examples of outcomes that we could achieve with them. So to start, I'll talk a little bit about it from the employer perspective. So likely we would speak to them and we would have at least 3 kind of outcomes for them. To start, we'd probably do some employer training. So this would be an initial focus on sessions and topics like intercultural competency in order just to introduce primary concepts and raise awareness for all of their members, as well as make sure that they have the skills and knowledge to create a more inclusive workplace. As well, we would set up employee resource groups. So together we would set up employee resource groups for staff of immigrant background, for staff of immigrant background, with the advice to expand to groups such as the LGBTQ+ community. These groups would work to provide a supportive space for employees to network, share experiences, and advocate for their rights, with us there to support them. And finally, for example, we would set up a policy review and revision. So together with the union, we would review their policies and procedures to ensure that they were inclusive and free from discrimination and to better reflect the needs of their diverse employees. And I'll hand it over to Colleen to speak about from the community perspective.
And thank you. And so throughout this process, we will be speaking together as different teams, and we will be sharing feedback in terms of maybe what were some of the concerns that occurred when we were doing our particular training. And so then we will just be tag teaming so that we are continuously meeting their needs. And so the training then that from the community side will be around helping them to understand some of the concepts that they're going to be hearing, some of the demographics. As we mentioned that the demographics have changed. So now new concerns will be coming to the fore, or maybe there might be new complaints that they might be hearing, or new experiences that people are opening up and they're sharing about. And so in our training, we will be having conversation with them, earmarking what is most critical at this point in time to determine which training will be most appropriate. And then we will map out a series so that we say we can start with this one and we can move to that one and we can go even deeper into this conversation. All the while we're keeping it continuous with their feedback so that we can know how we can tailor all of our programs as we advance. And then we want to be providing guidance for modeling that support. So for example, we will have a lot of action, much critical thinking will be encouraged throughout the session. We will be doing this through small group sessions, through different opportunities where people are opening up, they're sharing from their own experiences, we are problem solving, we are looking at, well, how could we have dealt with it in a different way? And all the while we are thinking of the inward client as well as the outward, the external client as well. The fact that as the community as a whole is becoming more diverse, that it must be reflected within the organization and within the union itself, so that people can feel comfortable, especially where their children are concerned, that they can feel, well, yes, this is someone that I can talk to. Yes, they truly understand my needs. And so we are modeling that and showing them how, helping them and supporting them with testing out the tools, maybe coming up, maybe piloting a program with them, or helping them to set up an idea that they have come up with. And then continuously incorporating that feedback and being proactive, like reaching out to the research group and hearing what are some of the trends that are happening, or what are some of the teachers' unions in other locations, what are the concerns that they're having. And so we're keeping them alert of, this is not here now. You're not presented with this now, but this is a possibility. And so we're encouraging them to be proactive all the time and always to be setting it up, and so that it doesn't have to mean that when people are coming to them, they're now having to put accommodations in place, for example, but that they have already considered that, so that when a person comes that needs a particular accommodation, they do not have to feel as though they're singled out, or as though so much has to be put in place just for them. And so it helps the team to be more cohesive. And I'll pass on to Tessa so that Tessa can share their approach.
So the research and partnership pathway can offer some of the following options: research on best practices, EDI approaches, and EDI programming from other unions with a focus on teachers' unions from across Canada. Direct communication with members of the union to assess their level of knowledge, assess their interests, and assess where the union wants to go in terms of knowledge and capacity. Determine what the gaps are between where the union is and where the union wants to go, but also where the union wants to go and areas that we know as the settlement sector they might need to learn or address that they might not be currently aware of because of their level of knowledge and experience. And lastly, to provide an environmental scan information and gap analysis information to my colleagues, Jordan and Colleen, in the other two pathways so that they can be informed on how to focus their trainings. So our integrated pathways approach recognizes the complexity of EDI work. We respond to this in a couple of different ways. We work collaboratively to identify EDI needs, gaps, challenges, and opportunities within and across our three pathways. We think critically about how to respond to what the people and groups and organizations in our pathways are experiencing. We also work collaboratively to ensure that we are working within and across our sectors to facilitate partnerships, share resources, problem solve, and provide better supports, programs, and services for immigrant clients. Lastly, by working creatively to develop approaches that are responsive, relevant, and reflective of ISAN's values. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will open up the Q&A. I see that there are some questions in there already, and we will engage with that now. If there's any others who would like to add questions, please feel free to do so. We have another 15 to 20 minutes that we will engage with this. So the first question, this is exposed to Jordan, and it says, all employers go to all steps. Do all employers go to all steps, I believe go through all steps following this order, or some employers just complete step 2 and step 3, for example?
So thank you for the question. I can certainly speak to this. So yeah, the pathway that I presented is kind of the ideal, it's kind of the ideal way that we would like organizations to go through and do their work with us. It doesn't typically work like this, of course, and like I mentioned, it can be quite iterative, where organizations go through the first 3 steps a few different times, and that's quite normal. But we like to present this pathway simplified like this, so that they understand that even though you're at the beginning stages now, you're only really a few steps away from really being a champion at this level. Yeah, so some employers do stop at 2 or 3, some go back to 1 or 2, but we're always very supportive in trying to get them to that last stage. And even if they do repeat steps 1, 2, and 3, they still often get to the stage 5.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jordan. And we have another question here. It says, to all panelists, what challenges do you face in implementing an integrated approach of EDI, specifically in terms of time, competing priorities, and funding?
This is a really good question. And I think this is something that people who work in the settlement sector or generally in the nonprofit sector experience regularly. And I think by integrating our approach and working really collaboratively and closely, that's one of our ways of avoiding just overlap in the sense of redoing the same things over and over again. Or if someone is spending a ton of time trying to search for a partnership or looking for a point of contact with someone who they're getting to know, they can refer to us or their team to avoid wasting their time. So I think that that's one of the ways that we're, instead of being in silos, as Jordan had mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, and not knowing what each other are working on, not really knowing our portfolios, not knowing who each other worked with, not knowing our interests, that was actually that was a waste of our time, and it was a waste of energy and capacity. So by working very closely together, by engaging with each other regularly, that's one of our ways of trying to be more efficient and more effective.
Okay, thank you. Jordan, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, just thank you, Tessa. And yeah, it's certainly a work in progress, but as you mentioned, this is something that we do see as a priority, and just building off what Tessa said. And yeah, that's something that we do take very seriously.
Yeah. And I could also say as well, funding is always one of those things that we have to always be looking for additional funding. I know that seems to be a daily job of actually trying to find the funding to support all of the work and especially the challenges that our clients are continuously bringing to us and the areas. And so we're always seeking for that. But indeed, some of the other difficulties would be time. So for example, let's imagine the teachers union really wanted to engage with all of our work. The challenge will be, what time can they have available for all of their staff, all of the union to participate in it? That is always difficult. And whilst we work for a 5-day week, we try to have all of our programming within that time. I do find, particularly within the community side of things, there are times where we have to go outside of that because it is just not practical for everyone to halt what it is that they're doing within the regular working hours. And so we do make allowances for that, providing that flexibility. So thank you for that question. We have another question here. It says, how does the integrated EDI approach take into account other social identities that newcomers have? Example, newcomer women or newcomers with disabilities or senior newcomers. Tessa, would you like to take a go at that one?
Sure. I'll speak specifically about the Supporting Inclusivity Project. One of the reasons that we're using this community-based approach and participatory approach, which really emphasizes and prioritizes co-learning and co-creation, is that our hope is that we can learn from each other's expertise. So we're working with organizations who are part of the disability sector, for example. Our hope is that ourselves as a settlement sector or the recreation sector or volunteer sector can learn from the expertise of people who are working with people with disabilities every single day. And in turn, they can learn from us about what it might be like to work with a newcomer, work with a refugee, or potentially work with a single parent. So our hope is that we can, from the service provider side of things, recognize that in order to address the intersecting nature of people's identities, the complexity of things people have been through and who they are, we need to also respond to that by intertwining our services and becoming knowledgeable about each other's sectors and share those resources.
Thank you. Jordan, do you want to weigh in on this as well?
No, I think, yeah, Tessa, you've answered it quite well. And yeah, just to build upon that, it does require collaboration. We cannot do this without the help from our partner organization. Absolutely.
And a good example of that, I mentioned that from the Welcoming Communities program, that we are engaging with different partners. And a good example of that is in the recreation field. And so there are particular working groups that I'm a part of. And when we are there are equity-seeking groups who are coming and sharing how they interact and what their experiences and their challenges are as it relates to recreation. And I think of particular female groups, women who are coming and they're saying, okay, we want spaces for just women only, not space that is shared with any other genders. And so we have to be responsive in terms of understanding that that is a need. It's a need that is based upon cultural experiences. It's a need that is also rooted in religious experiences. And if we are truly going to be inclusive and as a team spearhead that approach, we have to be welcoming those voices, allowing times and creating safer spaces where they are able to open up and they are able to say, well, yes, I would like to be a part of recreation, but this is a major barrier to me. And then because we are an integrated team and that is our approach, I would be able to share that with my other team members, that when you are speaking now with, let's say, a sports organization or another recreational facility, this is something that they need to hear, and also encouraging them to keep those opportunities open where people could bring feedback, but also anonymous feedback as well. So that is a wonderful question. I see another question here. This one says, how have you worked with the health system in Nova Scotia? Is there some EDI policies in the health system? Who would like to approach this first?
I can start with this one because certainly it's an excellent question, and I have nothing but excellent things to say about the Nova Scotia Health Authority and the work that they've done with us and our other teams within ISANS. They're very keen about implementing EDI policies and are always have always worked with us closely to ensure that their staff have EDI training and that their policies are have equity, diversity, and inclusion. And their chief, I guess I should say, HR manager works very closely with us, and actually began as an iSANS client, and now is one of those champions that I spoke about in the beginning, and really serves as an exemplar of where we want other organizations to go.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, and I can second that too, because, and yet another example of how the teams are working collaboratively. So Jordan and the rest of the team are working in terms of that employer approach, but then I've also spent an entire season working with the organization, particularly in the recruitment area, and just providing training, and that is coming from their requests. And then the desire for continual training as well. And so there is that recognition that, yes, our demographic is changing and we too need to catch up and move along. And so we are seeing not just one agency, but other health agencies. I recall the year before this last one, spending the entire fall ensuring that all of the staff in one of the health facilities received the microaggressions training. They have already reached back out saying, new staff has come. We still want to ensure that all of our staff knows how to interact with clients and also with community and with the other existing staff. And so now we are in plans to roll that same workshop out and then future workshops. So that is a wonderful approach there. We have another question here. Well, this one is geared towards me. It says, how do language barriers impact implementing trauma-informed approach and exploring difficult conversations with newcomers? So thank you for asking that question, because in the Building Intercultural Competence Workshop, which I deliver, one of the main challenges that we consider is the language barrier, and the fact that so many of the persons who are coming in new to Canada, English is not their first language. And we have so many different mother tongues all over Canada. And so language is indeed that challenge. And so some of the strategies that we offer, and even in terms of that trauma-informed approach, is in terms of first and foremost recognizing that individual's voice still needs to be heard. And so providing opportunities where there are other options for that person to express what they want to share. Maybe options around, I know one of the things that I see in action for sure is around using Google Translate. So that if a person wants to communicate something, even if they know English and they're good at it, there's some words and some phrases that there's not that direct translation for, and it is so nuanced with and it's so infused with cultural understanding that it is better to just say it in their language. And so sometimes people will say things and it can be translated via Google, or we also encourage there to be people who will volunteer. Many times newcomers are coming and they're not readily able to find work, or even in the same profession that they're in. And many times they go through that feeling where their self-worth is drained. And a good way of helping people to build up their self-esteem is allowing them volunteer opportunities. So we do encourage that there are people who are within organizations who would have that time that they can come along and they can be the translator, or they can help interpret things and be there as that support. And so those are two strategies. And then also offering opportunities where maybe persons can, you can utilize imagery to get your information across. And even last week in the Building Intercultural Competence Workshop, a lady was sharing and she was saying, I was at work And people didn't understand me much, but she singled out one person and she said, that individual spent the time to communicate with me and we just withdraw. And she said, that helped me. It really lifted my self-esteem. It really encouraged me when I was going through a difficult time. So just being creative and recognizing that some words might be triggering people's trauma and being very cautious, always be watching people and their responses and always having that aim to do no harm. And if a situation happens where you recognize that you've offended someone, that you backpedal, you apologize, you find another approach and another way of framing what it is that you're seeing. But however it is that we must allow those persons to express themselves and be patient, because by making a person feel as though you're hurrying them to get what they're saying off of their chest, that in itself might bring too much anxiety. So again, the patience, speaking slower, and providing other opportunities for individuals to share. So I hope that that was helpful. It's approaching 10 minutes afterwards, and so we now have another question. Someone says, thank you so much for your time today. I was curious if the panelists could speak to some innovative ways or approaches they have taken to engage the community, any technologies. So I did mention some just now. I will allow the others to touch. And then we have one other question in there that we're hoping to get in before 3:15 as well.
Truly, I can just start and speak a little bit to that. So for certainly, we continued our work during the COVID pandemic, and a lot of our workshops and presentations moved online, but of course they don't always translate directly. So to ensure that we kept them engaging and interactive, we learned how to adapt them to doing them online through Zoom or from Microsoft Teams, including, so we use a few different tools such as the polls and word clouds, as well as Google Jamboards and other whiteboards, just to be sure that they maintain that level of participation and allow for participants to share and learn from one another. We also do offer hybrid workshops when possible, and that allows people to still be able to join in person if they wish, or from their computer.
As I had mentioned, that our community-based research, this approach, we are testing it out to see if this is an approach that works well. This is a pilot within a pilot. So we're testing it out to see, is this a good way of engaging with community? So that's one of our techniques. As Jordan mentioned, we're still working partially virtually. So using some things like Jamboards are a really great way of speaking to people. In the coming year, when the project advances, there will also be engagement with different types of way of gauging feedback from the people participating in our project. So some people respond really, really well to one-on-one interviews. Other people like group feedback sessions. Some people like writing a written, something like a survey, but a lot of people also really prefer arts-based methods. So something like a photo voice project, or using some type of artistic and creative and collaborative method to get feedback or share their ideas. So I think it's important to offer ask your participants how they best communicate and how they would like to share their ideas, so that they can feel comfortable. And I think this also responds to a certain extent to the question that was posed to Colleen about, making people feel comfortable to share their ideas. So offering different options to people. And in our approach as well, as the researcher, it's not my job to necessarily say, here's the way you're going to communicate with me. Instead, we're collaboratively together deciding on what works best. And so I'm sure people in our steering committee will come up with ideas that I've never even thought about. And that's the whole point, is that the ideas that are coming from the people who are most impacted themselves. And so I think offering a variety of options, trusting in the expertise and knowledge of the people you're working with to have knowledge about themselves and how they best want to communicate, and working collaboratively to do it.
Absolutely. So wonderful. And so we have a final question here. It says, thank you for the wonderful talk. I really enjoyed hearing about the ISON's EDI initiatives. I was wondering if you all had any thoughts on the recent inclusion of the term decolonization with the terms equity, inclusion, and diversity. That is, using the acronym EDI/D instead of EDI. How can the concept of decolonization be implemented in EDI work at the settlement sector? So who wants to go with that one? Okay, Tessa, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a really big question, and I'm not even sure if it's something that we can even possibly begin to respond in just 2 minutes. But I'm glad that you asked this question, because this is something that I think about a lot, especially as a settlement sector. We are working to settle other people here. And so this is something that we regularly have conversations about. What does it mean to be a settlement sector working to settle other people on land that is not ours? And so this is something that we regularly talk about how to approach this. And I don't think that we yet have an answer. And something that I think that for me personally is important is to make sure that we have a distinction between, myself as a white settler, I don't have the expertise, the knowledge, or the right to adopt, let's say, Indigenous ways of knowing or working and saying that they're mine or owned by me. I think that that's something we need to be careful of. That decolonization is not necessarily adopting someone else's way of doing things and having ownership over it. And so I think a lot of our conversations right now are focused on what does power mean in this context, and what does solidarity mean between groups of people who have experienced oppression or dispossession, or who have been some of our immigrant clients who are coming here, they are Indigenous to where they're coming from. And so what does it mean to build solidarity between groups of people while respecting the fact that we are a settlement organization settling people here? And so, yeah, that's just a few thoughts on a very, very complex and nuanced and important question. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you, Tessa. And I'm so happy that we were able to answer all of your questions within time today. I'm so thankful for your engaging with us in that manner and sharing those questions. And I hope that we were able to answer them for you. I know that the slides will be on the platform at a later date, and we will include some of our contact information that if you want to reach out, we would be happy to assist you in any further way. If there's one thing that you take from our session today, please let it be that whether you're a part of government or you're a part of a business, you're a part of a community group, or you just entered as an individual, let's remember humanity, our common humanity. And that sharing love, sharing kindness, having respect for people, regardless of whatever background they are coming from. And so not just the immigrant experience coming from outside, from another country, but even within Nova Scotia itself and within Canada, and recognizing that we are all coming from a multiplicity of cultural experiences and background. So let's have that respect for other people, have that teachable spirit where we want to learn more about other people, and we are always open. We have that cultural humility where we say, I want to learn more. I want to learn more and I want to engage with you. So as a team, the EDI, the Intercultural EDI team, the Innovation and Strategic Partnership team, and ISONS itself, we say thank you for sharing this space with us today, and we look forward to serving you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.